Welcome everyone to our Forté webinar, Go for Extraordinary, Don't Settle for Ordinary. We're excited that you've joined us for our Don't Quarantine Your Career series. And today we have a very special presentation from Lena Renee, and she's the Vice President of Consulting and at Franklin Covey, and she's also a book author on leading loyalty and the 5 choices. And so she's going to share with us her presentation today and really let us focus and help us on getting some strategies and thinking about what it is that's taking our attention off of the really important things that we need to get done. So excited to have you here today, Lena. So I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for taking time. I know you had hundreds of other things you could be doing, but thank you for joining and investing in yourself. Just a couple of expectations for our time together. This is going to be a really interactive session. So you'll want to have pen and paper near you if you've got some. We'll be doing some exercises on paper, some reflection. We'll also be chatting a lot. So you'll want to have the chat pod at the bottom of the screen. Most of you are probably more familiar with Zoom than you'd like to be at this point, but the chat at the bottom is where you can access that. And I'll have you can put questions or comments in to me, but you're also welcome to interact with each other that way as well. So if someone posts something that you think is insightful, you can respond back to them. I'll be pausing every few minutes for us to catch up on the chat. We're also going to do a breakout session if we get to it, where I'll have you in smaller groups talking to others so you can network and meet and process some of the things we're talking about. 2 things I'm going to ask of you if you're comfortable. One is that if you are comfortable being on camera, I'd love to have you on camera. I was telling all of my friends at Forté, for me, the most exciting part of these sessions is the connection that we have and getting to make that connection. So if you're comfortable on camera, doesn't matter if you're sitting on your couch or in bed, you'll put your camera on. And then the second thing is I'm going to have you use gallery view. So up in the upper right, you'll see there's 2 options. There's speaker view or gallery view. So while I'll be doing a bunch of the speaking, we're also going to ask others to join in and ask you to join in the conversation as well. So if you'll put it in gallery view, you can see some of your colleagues and friends as well as me. So, okay, so thank you. Now our session is going to be a fairly reflective one. So I'm going to ask you to really be thinking about how you're spending your time, all of the things that you're juggling day to day, week to week, and we're going to dig in to what's most important to you and personally most important to you. So this is going to be a bit reflective, and we'll kind of tease into that. Let's start our conversation. Again, you could, if you've got pen and paper, you can do it just something you're writing down, or you're welcome to pull up a document and type it. But I'm going to ask you to describe one of your best days recently. Okay, so you're going to just write it out. What about that day made it a good day? What was working well and things felt good that day? So I'm going to stop talking for just a moment while you describe one of your best days recently. And I'm going to do the same while we're talking. You can write the activities or how it felt, what you did, just your own description. And this is just best day in general. So it could be work, personal, both. Just another moment here. Thank you, Rochelle, for being willing to share yours. I love yours. Giving Tuesday yesterday. So that was one of your best days. Your campaign was successful. Congratulations. Okay, so I'm going to have us flip. We won't spend quite as much time, but I am going to have you think about one of your tough days recently. Okay, so you're welcome to share in the chat if you'd like, or you can just write on the piece of paper talking about one of your worst days. So we won't spend more than just a moment here, but when things weren't going well, when it didn't feel as good, what was that day about? Just one moment here. Okay, as we move on, first, a huge congratulations to Kimberly, who just got accepted into MBA school. Congratulations there. And Melanie, I so relate to your comment on the worst day. Got nothing done, ate crap food, didn't exercise, right? Right, in the COVID world, this is what we're experiencing. So look, as Alyssa mentioned, I co-authored a book called The 5 Choices to Extraordinary Productivity, and this was several years ago. But as we kind of, my co-authors and I looked around to say, what is the landscape of productivity today? Franklin Covey, the organization I'm with, has been in the world of productivity for about 35 years, right? And some of you weren't alive 35 years ago, but those of us that were can attest it was a different productivity landscape than it is today. So when we looked around a few years ago, what we found was this paradox, and that was that it's both easier and harder than ever to achieve extraordinary productivity. And this is what we found a few years ago. But as I was preparing for this session, what I realized is this is even more true, perhaps, in the COVID world. Would you agree? Yeah, so in this world, right, not today's world broadly, but today's world right now, why would it be harder than ever to be productive in the COVID world? Would you say? You can chat, or you're welcome to come off mute if you'd like as well. Why would it be harder in the COVID world to be productive?
It's harder because there's a lot of distractions. You're at home with family, with people that you care about, the phone's going off, the TV's on, somebody's knocking on the door. It's so many things going on. It's just unbelievable. So
unbelievable, Rochelle. You said that as well as it could have been said, right? I mean, there's just so much going on. And even when we know what we should be working on in the moment, I love how you said, you've got the kid running across the room, you've got someone knocking on the door. So just so many distractions. So talk to me about easier. How and why could it be easier to be productive in a COVID world? Not saying that it is more productive, but that it could be more productive in a COVID world. The time, thank you, Katie. So there's more time, there's no commute, everything's online, we've got access to information at our fingertips, we're connecting without all the in-betweens. Yeah, the flexibility, we've got access to the tools. So this paradox was where we were really focused, and we realized if we wanted to help people be more productive in this complex paradox, we would have to help them wrap their arms around why it's harder. So let me talk to you about the 5 choices that we came up with, and then we're actually just going to dive into choice number 2 in our session today. So mostly I show this slide because look, my name's on a book. Yay! Like, it's really exciting for me. Okay, so here are the 5 choices. 30,000 level view. Choice 1 is to act on the important, don't react to the urgent. That is the foundational, paramount choice where I have to be able to discern what deserves my time and what doesn't. Right? Because I can spend all of my time on things that are unimportant and I'm not getting anywhere closer to extraordinary. So that's the first choice. Choice 2, which is go for extraordinary, don't settle for ordinary, is the choice where I really define my potential to contribute to my own life in a meaningful way. Right? I get clear on what is my potential and what could I accomplish that would be deeply meaningful and extraordinary to me. Choice 3, schedule the big rocks, don't sort gravel. Some of you are familiar with that metaphor. So in that choice, we're really prioritizing. From choices 1 and 2, I know what's important. Choice 3, I'm going to prioritize my time to align with those things I've identified. Choice 4, rule your technology, don't let it rule you, is the choice where I align all of the things that could distract me or could make me more productive to my priorities. In fact, we even saw it in some of the reasons why we can be possibly more productive in the COVID world is our access to information, our access to communication, our access to tools. But if those things aren't aligned to the priority, I'm going to end up scrolling for a lot of hours in a day. So that's choice 4. And then choice 5, fuel your fire, don't burn out, is a choice that we often might not expect to find in a productivity or time management realm. But what we found is that you could be making all of those other choices maniacally, just perfectly. And if you were burning out, if you didn't have the physical and mental energy to carry through on your priorities, nothing else mattered. If you feel like a zombie when you turn on your computer in the morning or when you shut down your computer at night, it's just not feasible to be extraordinary. So that's the 5 choices. For this session, we're going to focus in on choice 2, which is go for extraordinary, don't settle for ordinary. And one of the things that's been interesting as I've worked with many, thousands of people on this content is how often I'll have someone say, look, I had one woman raise her hand and say, okay, look, ordinary is a stretch for me most days. I'm not getting anywhere near extraordinary in my life. And she kind of went on to say, I'm not Mother Teresa. Like, what do you expect from me? And I just want to kind of shoot down that perception. What we're saying here is we all have an ordinary. Sometimes I call it the cruise control. We all have a cruise control in life. And it is a very viable option for you to put your life on cruise control and just go, right? And it's the day in and it's the day out and it's the ordinary. But we all have the potential to do things that go beyond that, right? When you've done something that felt beyond cruise control, beyond ordinary. So let me pause really quickly and just look at the chat. And you're welcome to, if you haven't had a chance to look at the chat, to do the same. Make sure I'm not missing any questions or comments. Yeah, very good. Okay, previous slide. Yeah, you bet. So I think it's probably this one, but if it's a different one, let me know. Oops. Okay, so we're going to actually go into a breakout room now, and I'm just going to put you in groups of 3 or 4. And here's the conversation we're going to start with. I want you to talk about a time when you did something that was beyond cruise control. So this means it could be anything. I know. Here's what it means. It could mean, look, I trained for and I ran my first 5K. My boss made me the team lead and I was able to engage the team in a way they hadn't been before. I planted my garden this weekend, right? Whatever feels like, that's mine. Instead of binge watching, I planted a garden. That was extraordinary. That was beyond ordinary for me. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Again, we're going to put you into groups of, let's do, 2 or 3 per room. And I'm only going to give you about 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. So you're going to want to do the quick introductions. You can chat your emails into the chat there, and then you'll have them. You can copy and paste them. Let me put the questions that I'm going to have you answer. Again, this is, when have you done something extraordinary? And then a few other questions for you to answer are going into the chat. You'll be able to see these when you get into your chat rooms. Okay, off you go. 4 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Can I have you, well, first, I love that conversation. I know some of you had breakout room problems, I apologize. But for those of you who didn't, that conversation is one of my favorite conversations, because what happens is I say, hey, I want you to talk about a time when you did something extraordinary. I'm gonna actually stop sharing so I can see you guys. And the look on people's faces is amazing, just precious. Like you get like deer in headlights, and you get skepticism, you get the stink eye sometimes. And then when we begin the conversation, we realize, no, we do things that are beyond cruise control frequently, right? We do extraordinary things regularly. And it's not about being Mother Teresa, and it's not about these massive things. It's at the end of the day, you put your head on the pillow and think, yeah, that was a good day, right? Today felt like I was meeting some of my potential. So that's the extraordinary that we're here to talk about. Okay, and when you think back to that best day that you'd had recently, right? When I said describe your best day, that's some of that as well, right? That's the extraordinary that we're looking for as well, and that best day. So in our development of this content and of the book, there really was this premise that we all have the potential to do extraordinary things. And we deeply believe this. In fact, at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a little button called reactions. Can I have you, if you heard a story that you found inspiring or engaging or extraordinary when you were in your breakout, will you hit the thumbs up? I did. I heard a great one from Katie, great one from Alyssa, right? This idea that we all have the potential to do extraordinary things, and meeting that potential is a choice, right? It becomes a choice if we're going to meet that potential. So one thing I know is that right now we are all juggling many, many things, right? We just to the point that Rochelle made earlier, like all of the different roles in our lives are all of a sudden in our face, in our space, in our time, all the time. And one of the ways that we think about being extraordinary is that we are looking at all the roles we play and identifying those roles that we would say are the most critical. And we call them Q2 roles. It stands for quadrant 2. And you're welcome to join us. Actually, in just a couple of hours, we'll dive into what quadrant 2 means. But just as you see Q2, just know that that's the reference point we're making. And let me tell you about Q2 roles. Q2 roles can be described in this way. They represent your key responsibilities and relationships. These are the roles that if you and I sat down for a drink together, pretty quickly I'd be hearing what your Q2 roles are, because it's who you are, right? It's those key things that you do. 2, they have to be limited. You don't get to have 20 Q2 roles. Why would that be? Someone chat or come off mute. Why do we only have a few Q2 roles?
It's not humanly possible to achieve more than a few things, I think.
Exactly it. This is that principle of focus. Thank you. Will you tell me how to pronounce your name?
Payal.
Payal. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Payal. So you can't be extraordinary at 20 things. I'll tell you, when I first did this process as we were developing it, I had 7 Q2 roles. And I can't even be extraordinary at 7. I'm down to 4. That's my limit right now. So they have to be limited. 3, they express your deepest values, your highest aspirations. This is from the gut. This is from the heart, who you are, who you want to be. They create a balanced perspective of your life. If you spend 30 or 40 hours in a given role, it would be on your life wheel, right? And then finally, they change over time. So as we go into this exercise, one of the things I want you to bear in mind is that the Q2 roles that are demanding and focused for you now might not be the same ones in 3 months, 6 months, next year, right? So this exercise is right now in your life, what are those roles that are most important to you? So this exercise, you're going to want to have a piece of paper. Let me share with you a few examples of what we're going to do, and then I'll set you off to work. So Jennifer, we're going to follow Jennifer through the rest of our session. She creates a life wheel, what we call a life wheel, and she creates the roles that she sees as most important. Now, these are not all of Jennifer's roles. Jennifer has dozens of roles, right? Jennifer might be a pet owner, a neighbor, a friend. These are the roles that in her life right now, she's saying deserve her best and her finest attention. Marketing director, spouse, runner, soccer coach, leadership trainee, meaning that she's training to be a leader in her organization, and parent. Give you another example here. Aki is a retail store manager, a buyer, a friend, a volunteer, and then I love this one. She says self is one of her roles. And that could mean any number of things. But what she's saying is that I want to care for myself in an extraordinary way. That's a compelling one that particularly in these COVID times might be relevant for us. Okay, I'm going to have you create a life wheel. You're going to draw a circle and do the same kind of pie slices. Now, before you begin, I have before you go to work, 3 quick pieces of advice. One, I would encourage you to brainstorm a long list, 10 or 15 roles that might be Q2 roles. And in fact, while you're working, I'll put this up so that you can maybe get some inspiration. From there, after you've gotten that list, refine it to the 5 to 7. Okay, second thing I'm gonna just tell you, there might be some roles in your life that you wish you were engaged in, but you're not currently. So you might wish you were writing, but you're not, right? Or wish you were a musician, but you're not playing music. It is entirely appropriate to include those roles on your life wheel if it's really something you want to focus on. Okay, last thing, the size of each pie slice is not relevant to our conversation. So if it gives you deep inner peace to get your ruler out and make sure they're even, you can, but it's not relevant. Okay, I will stop talking and give you a couple of minutes to get your own life wheel created. I'm muted as I was going. Thanks, you guys. I said so many profound things just now that you couldn't hear. Okay, so we're going to evaluate how you feel you're currently performing in these roles. So they're intuitive explanations, but underperforming meaning I'm not doing what I should. I haven't spent much time on it. Ordinary is cruise control. And extraordinary means I'm excited about the contribution I'm making, right? It's that energy and that focus that you talked about earlier. So in your life wheel, and let me share again a couple of examples so you can see. This is Jennifer's life wheel. The center right here at the middle, that is underperforming. Okay, so you can see that she feels she's underperforming in her role as a runner. This middle band is ordinary, and she's feeling ordinary as a spouse, a parent, soccer coach. And then this outer band is extraordinary, and she's fallen into the trap that I know many of us have felt, where our professional lives get our best from us, right? So she's feeling pretty good about her roles in her professional life. Let me share one more example. This is Anthony, who's got these roles as his Q2 roles, and he says he's underperforming as a carpenter, on the cusp of ordinary as an editor, ordinary as a council member and a hospital administrator. feeling pretty good about his role of father because that's going right into the extraordinary band. And then Anthony's feeling good about his role as husband. Now, Anthony might want to check in with his sweetheart, right, to make sure that he is extraordinary. But actually, that's not the exercise. The exercise is, how do you feel you're doing in these roles? So let me go back so you can see the definitions here on Jennifer's, remembering that the outer circle is extraordinary. Okay, I'll stop talking while you do this evaluation exercise. Can I have either in the chat, or if someone's willing to be vulnerable and just come off mute and share, what's your experience with this exercise? It's not a leading question at all. I'm just wondering, how is this exercise for you? Chat is fine, or off mute.
My name is Abby.
Hi, Abby.
Nice to meet you. I really enjoyed this exercise. I think it made me think a little bit more about what I'm pouring my energy into and whether those things are what I want to be pouring my energy into during this time. And I think I'm feeling good about the way I've mapped it out, although there are some areas such as I am the founder of a writing club for women, and I want to give more energy to that space, but I'm also preparing to apply for an MBA. So I know I'm giving a lot of energy to that space. So just balancing things.
Just balancing things. Thank you, Abby. Beautifully said. Yeah, it is balancing things, right? Time is that one resource that is finite, right? There's a restriction to it. So which of those gets your energy in any given moment is a choice. Thank you, Abby, for being willing to share. Thanks for the comments as well, right? So it's helping you prioritize. I'll tell you sometimes, oh, Stephanie, that's an interesting comment, right? It's a little convicting about where I'm not quite performing, right? I have had people say, oh, it's a little depressing, this exercise, and that's not the intent at all. But we can't improve unless we have this moment of truth with ourselves, right? This is where we say, how am I doing? So, and Christina, I think many of us can relate. One of these roles might be looking fantastic at the expense of the others, right? You can't do everything, as we've established. Okay, so now our next part of the exercise, and this is where it gets really fun, is we're going to get really clear on what would it look like if we took one of these roles, or actually let's talk all of these roles, and moved it all the way out to the outer edge, right? What would it look like if we were extraordinary in these roles? So we're going to start with a simple exercise. I'm going to give you 2 minutes and I'm going to time it, and I'm going to do the exercise with you as well. And you're going to just work your way around your life wheel and write down the first 2, 3, 4 words that pop into mind when you think of extraordinary in that role. So let me share with you Anthony's examples. So he, in some of his roles, wrote an entire sentence, but in others, just a couple of words. So you're going to do the same thing. This is not deep thought. This is what snaps into your mind when you say, what does extraordinary mean to me as a leader, as a parent, as a friend, as self? Okay, we have 2 minutes to do this. I'm going to stop talking. It's on your own, and it's a draft. Off we go. We have another moment here, another minute. Okay. I hope that got you at least started. If you didn't make your way around the wheel, that's going to be your homework here. This is, we are painting the picture for extraordinary in our lives. And I would say there's probably no more important work that you could do than to carry forward on this exercise and get really clear on what it means to be extraordinary. I often say you can't hit a bullseye if there's no target. Right? So being extraordinary is meaningless unless you've identified what extraordinary is. We have another tool that I want to share with you to take this kind of to the next step. Because now, if this is all you did, just had this life wheel, and I'll tell you, I have my life wheel with a bunch of scribbles like this, and I visit my life wheel actually several times a year. For me, this is my target. This is what I want to be. So at least once every quarter, I sit down and just make sure that I'm still on track with what that vision of extraordinary is. I often will just take a picture of this messy, life wheel and keep it in my phone with me, right? So then when I'm tempted to be just scrolling and scrolling, I'll pull up that picture instead, right? Because there's a moment in every moment where you make a choice whether you're going to be cruise control or extraordinary. But here's the next level. So this gives us this introductory extraordinary. Now we're going to talk about one role, and I want you to think about the role that feels most important to you right now. Whatever that role is, put a little star by it in your life wheel. So I'm going to make you focus on just one for the next few minutes. For that,
the next exercise, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Could you repeat what we're doing?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I just want you to pick one role and put a star by it. That's the role that I'm going to ask you to focus on getting even more clear on what extraordinary is. Thank you, Amrita, thank you. And here's what it looks like. Once you've identified the role you're focused on, you're going to write what we call a Q2 role statement. And again, if you want to know what Q2 means, you're going to have to join the next session. But Q2 role statement, and here's the formula for it. You're going to say as, and then the role title, I will, and you're listing the extraordinary outcomes that you will achieve in that role through the specific activities that it takes to get there. Now, I'm going to send you through the chat. So if your chat's not open, go ahead and go to your chat. And I'm going to send you a document that has this exact formula for you. So you can actually, it's over there in the chat now, and you can open it up. And you're welcome to use this document, or you're welcome to do this just on a piece of paper. But here's the exercise. You're getting very clear on extraordinary for one role. What I would recommend as homework here is that you print this document off or save it the number of times for the number of roles you have. And you spend 45 minutes or an hour really getting that target clear. What does extraordinary mean? Now, let me give you a couple of examples from Jennifer's life. Jennifer, oh, this is the document that just came through. So you'll see that, and there's a Q2 role statement, and then there's some Q2 goals you can set as well. Jennifer says that she's a marketing director, but then she steps back and says, wait, what do I do as a marketing director? Really, I'm a business catalyst. And she decides to rename the role to business catalyst. She says, as a business catalyst, I will build a trusted, reputable brand that attracts a new, younger market through innovative products distributed powerfully via social media as well as traditional channels. So this is ordinary, and then there's extraordinary. Let me give you one more example from Jennifer's world. Oh yes, thanks for the chat. So in the chat, if you scroll up, I've actually put the PDF right in there. Will you do a reaction thumbs up if you were able to download it, just so I know that some of you are getting it? Okay, okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, if you can't find it, let me just do it one more time, but it is in this chat. Okay, so it's coming through again. If you look at the chat right now, the last thing in it will be the PDF. And chat you can access from the bottom of your Zoom. There's a chat button. Okay, so thank you for that. So let me give you one more example and some thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up and turn it to Q&A. So Jennifer says that she's also a spouse. That was one of her roles on her life wheel. But again, instead of saying I'm a spouse, she renames the role to something just a little more inspiring to her. She says, I'm Steve's best friend. And as Steve's best friend, I will show my unconditional love and support through regularly communicating my feelings for him and helping him achieve his life goals. Right? Now, a couple of thoughts here. If this is ordinary, right, on the left, and then in the green boxes is extraordinary, you can see that extraordinary is aspirational, it's very specific, it's inspirational, and it's deeply personal. Right? Jennifer's role as spouse looks nothing like my role as spouse. Right? That's not what my view of extraordinary is. So this really is designed to be very personal, inspirational. Okay, so let's see, it's 44 minutes. Let's spend just a couple of minutes. Would that be okay, Amy and Alyssa? Okay, we'll spend a few minutes working on this, get you started on it, and then we'll wrap up in time for some questions as well. Okay, I'm going to have you just focus on this part of the document. Now, if you opened the document, you'll see page 1 has some thought-provoking questions. You can do those on your own time, and they are pretty insightful, pretty reflective. Page 2 gets you to this, and you're welcome to use this document or piece of paper. And you're just going to write out your very first draft of a Q2 role statement, and let me tell you, it does not have to be pretty. I know Jennifer's examples are flowing and poetic, and no, mine are not, right? Mine are just some visceral response to extraordinary. So I'm going to stop talking. If you didn't get the PDF, it's fine. Just use the formula that you see on the page. As role statement, I will outcomes through activities. Again, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to pick one role and go through this process. I will not keep talking while you do that. I will be quiet. Okay, I know I'm interrupting you. That wasn't quite enough time, I don't think. And I hope it got you started thinking. Can I have you either in the chat, or again, if someone would be courageous to come off mute, what do you see the benefit of this exercise being? If you were to go through this for all of the roles on your life wheel, what would the advantage be in your mind? And not a leading question, truly asking. Please, Marcel.
Hi. It helps. It's a wonderful exercise because it places me in the position of truly focusing my attention on what my goals are, how I feel about them, and also it's a way to foster an action plan in order to reach the goals in terms of the migration of my performance in these various roles, which are important to me right now. And I thank you for the recommendation or the note of these roles. They do change over time as we evolve.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's at this stage in my life, it's important for me to remember flexibility for myself.
That's
and
right.
this is a great exercise.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad it was meaningful for you as well. You know, that they change over time. That's really important because it gives us grace to say, it's okay if I'm not an extraordinary everything all the time, right? There have been times, and I have this really tight group of girlfriends. We're really close. And I remember when I was working on the book itself, doing this exercise and realizing that my friend role probably wasn't going to make my life wheel. And I had a little crack in my heart about it. I thought, what am I saying if being a friend isn't on my life wheel? And then I realized, I'm not saying I'm going to stop being a friend. I'll still show up at brunch and we'll still vacation together. What I'm saying is that role right now in my life, it has to go on cruise control. And that's okay. Right? I'll pop it back off cruise control in the future when I have the bandwidth for that. So it does give us that space to be graceful with ourselves. Thank you. Thank you for that, Marcel. Okay, so, and thank you for the comments you're making here, getting truthful about what you need to do. That's the idea, is that we can get present around what does extraordinary mean? And now you've got this target, right? You've got this vision of what it means to be extraordinary. Of course, the next step is action. The last thing I'll say about this worksheet is that once you've got this kind of heartfelt, from the gut, from the heart vision of extraordinary, the next step to action is that you set some goals, right? So it's not just a beautiful picture of extraordinary, but there's a tangible process we're making. My guess is that as you did this, it's unlikely that in this section you had very many numbers. There's been a couple of times when I've worked with accountants and they're like, oh yeah, I've got numbers. But most of us, it's not, it's just from the heart. However, what we know at Franklin Covey from decades of working with people and organizations is that people will play differently when there's a score, when you're keeping score, right? So that's what a goal does for us. It gives us a very tangible way to take action. So here's Jennifer's goal as the business catalyst or marketing director. She says, I'm going to launch a social media campaign to generate $1.3 million by December 31st. And I'm going to increase customer loyalty score from 45 to 65 by December 31st. Both of these fall into the same format, which you'll see in your document as well, which is from X to Y by when, right? There's a starting line, there's a finishing line, and there's a date. Now, not every goal will fall into that format, but it's a particularly compelling format to get attention for keeping score. Now, your brain will plug into that format. Again, I'm going to just type it into the chat. It's from X to Y by when. That's the format. One last thought on that, and then we'll wrap up. When we were doing the research, we partnered with this brilliant person. All of his research, his PhD, his institute was focused on goal setting, right? And what goal setting does for your brain. And he made the most amazing analogy that's always stuck with me. He said, in terms of storage space and processing in our brains, we all have roughly the same amount. He said the difference between a high performer and a low performer is, of course, how they use that storage space and processing in their brain. But here's the part that caught me off guard. He said high performers process far less information. Does that seem counterintuitive to you? He said a high performer can take a complex set of information and quickly hone in on what's most relevant and focuses there. And then the analogy he said was, it's almost like a nightclub. And don't we all wish we were going to the nightclub these days? He said it's like a nightclub that has a really strong bouncer. And the bouncer has a VIP list that says, is this on the list or not? High performers have strong nightclub bouncers in their brain. And then he said low performers don't have a bouncer. Just everything gets in their brain and everything becomes mush, right? There's no focus. So when you look at your goals, the point is you are handing the nightclub bouncer in your brain a VIP list. That's what a goal does for your brain. Okay, as we wrap up, I just want to, okay, so here, you're gonna have to listen carefully for this instruction. I want you to answer in the chat the answer to 2 questions, but don't hit enter yet, right? So don't hit enter, you're just gonna chat, and then we'll all hit enter at the same time, and all of these great comments will flood in. What I want you to answer the question to, without hitting enter, what has been your takeaway in the session? Just in one sentence, what's the big takeaway? But the second is, what will you do differently based on this session? I want an action, just one little commitment. Maybe that action is, I'm gonna go back and fill out my Q2 role statements. Maybe the action is, I'm gonna talk to my spouse about how I'm doing in this role. So just two sentences. What's your key takeaway and what will you do differently? And then if you accidentally hit enter, that's okay, but try not to hit enter so that we can all put our enter in at the same time. Okay, if you finish typing, I want you to hit enter to everyone and we'll get this flood of action and takeaways. And I'm gonna give you a moment to kind of scroll through some of these amazing comments. Look at this, look at all the action that's coming out of the last hour together. It's incredible, thank you. One question we had is, could I share the document on a screen? You bet. Let me do that. Let's see. So that you can. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my. And then as I'm doing this, please do look through some of those amazing comments. Just so cool. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and let you see the document itself. There's 2 pages, so if you're going to take a screenshot, get ready to take 2 of them. The first one just has these, and we can send it out following as well with the recording, but it's got the role and then these 3 questions. And if you got the document, just keep looking through some of those amazing comments. Okay, so screenshot this, and then here's the second page. You can screen share that. Okay, and I know I have taken almost all our time. Alyssa and Amy, thank you for letting me do so. I'm not in any hurry to jump off the line, so I'm happy to stay on and answer questions, but I do want to give just an extraordinary thank you for being here, for investing your time in this and in you. Just really, it's been such my pleasure to be here, so thank you for that. And I'm going to turn it back over to Alyssa.
Thank you, Lena. It was great. I mean, just so interactive and participants, way to go on so much insight and change and things to be doing to really take your career to the next level. So thanks for the inspiration. I'll open it up to a couple of questions. If there's anything that anybody wants to take themselves off mute and ask, I think we could do maybe 2 questions and then we'll wrap up. The recording will be mailed.
I have a question.
Yes.
Great.
So I wanted to ask that out of these webinars, are there any resources, even maybe one-on-one interaction or people that can help you to go through this process so that you can actually come up with, I know this was like rapid fire, very useful, provided some great insights, but I'm sure it can actually, it's a process that can take even a week or weeks to actually go into detail. So what resources are available to be able to do that?
So I can answer from Franklin Covey's perspective. From this content, of course, there's the book. You can order that anywhere that books are ordered. You're welcome to reference that. Franklin Covey typically engages at the organizational or leadership level. So we'll work with a team intact, or we'll work with the organization. And you're welcome to reach out to us. I do have my email address. Let me put that on the screen so you can see that. You're welcome to reach out in that case. But so we tend to work at the organizational level. Let's see, screen 2.
And I think it's a good chance just to say, I know that was put in the chat, but that we have 2 more webinars today that are going through similar topics, but different perspectives and a little bit different advice. And I know Lane has mentioned that a couple of times. So if you can join the next 2 webinars, there's one at 2 around act on the important, don't react to the urgent. And then at 4, scheduling the big rocks and don't source the gravel. And both of those, we position them in different audience perspectives, but everybody's welcome to join. There's no restrictions. And then I would just say there's so much rich information on the Forté website and in our library of other webinars. So I'd encourage you to go there and download the recordings, and all of these are being recorded, so we'll also have them in the library if you need to go back through for a refresher, or if you can't make the ones later today, you can join online and just listen to the on-demand recording.
So as you can tell, the next session is going to be about choice 1, and then the one after that's going to be about choice 3, and we'll mix in some choice 4 as well. So love to have you join if you have the bandwidth, and thanks for the question. Thanks for being here, and yeah, just so grateful.
Yeah, thanks, Lena. And I'm going to get in touch with my inner bouncer and see if I can't get him or her to do a better job. I think that's my learning for today. Really appreciate you being with us, and thanks to our wonderful participants. It was very inspiring just to hear all of the things you're going through and the changes that you're going to make. So upward and onward, and hopefully we'll see you back here in a couple of hours or an hour for the next webinar. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Be in touch. Thank you.